We'll get to it. Hey, good afternoon or good evening. This is the Wednesday edition of Them Smith Boys. Man, a lot's going on. Man, I'm ready to get into it. Of course, today we have two very special guests. Um, my niece Camille and my daughter Morgan. Camille Smith and Morgan Smith, them Smith girls. Yeah,
Okay. Hey, I see what
yeah,
you did there. I see what you did there.
yeah. They might have to get their own show there, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, very excited to have them on. I will tell you, I think I speak for my brother um, that we are very proud of all of our children. Like I said, we spoke earlier. Growing up, our mother, awesome mother, did a lot great thing raising us. But our father, he, man, he pushed that education dynamic into us,
Yeah.
and we've passed it down to all of our children. And we are very proud of all of their accomplishments. If you don't got anything yet, we'll let the young ladies introduce themselves.
Yeah. We'll let him do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so awesome. My name is Morgan Smith. I'm a senior at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and I'm excited to be on the podcast this evening. I know it's going to be a great time.
What are you majoring in, Morgan?
Yeah, I'm majoring in management and society with a minor in conflict management.
Ooh, conflict management. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Camille.
yeah. My name's Camille. I'm a freshman at Amherst College in Massachusetts. I'm majoring in political science and French, and hopefully with like an international relations certificate or minor. So, yeah.
Can you hit him a little bit of the French language?
Oui, je parle français. Yeah.
Okay. So look, yeah, thanks for the introduction. Look, we have a lot of things that we want to talk about tonight. But something happened today. I saw a video. I was on Twitter minding my own business like I normally do, and I saw a video today. And before we talk about it, I'm just going to play it, and then we'll go from there. So just give me 1 second.
Right now, bro. You outside right now. You're talking to individual. What are you gonna do? You know I can have my face. Can you have my face? Come outside. Come outside. Oh shit! Chill. Brian, get out. Brian, leave. Holy shit. Nah, nigga. What the
Cops show up after the fight starts, and you saw who they arrested and who they protected. Any fucking questions? Cops show up.
Chill. Brian, get out. Brian, leave. Holy shit. Nah, nigga. What the
Cops show up.
All right.
I mean, I mean, same song, man. Same song. Like I said, we've said this before. Um, Even though it's televised, you know, when a person becomes a cop, right? When you put on that badge and that gun, your biases, your bigotry, your whatever, it doesn't take a hiatus, right? So what you saw there is a clear example. I mean, I'm not surprised, you know. What they'll say, they're going to say what we're going to give them some sensitivity training.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Only difference is it's televised. Imagine how it was before the video.
Well, I think we already know how it is, how it was before the video, and this is one reason why I don't. Well, I'll say going forward, I'm not gonna tolerate people's ignorance when it comes to the police and the criminal justice system. I personally believe that the criminal justice system is racist. The statistics prove it. Um,
Mhm.
and it's not my job to educate you on what the statistics are. Okay, you can go out there and you can find it yourself. And I'm done entertaining those conversations about the criminal justice system, how African Americans and other people of color, how they are treated when the police comes. One interesting thing about that video, when you see it, the white kid was actually on top of the black kid during the. I mean, you saw that. I mean, and so I don't know. I don't know. This video coupled with what happened in Minnesota a few weeks ago. His name was Amir Locke.
Mhm.
And I just try to imagine if I was in my room, if I'm in my bed sleeping and it's 7 o'clock in the morning and someone just come knocking on my door, I'm probably thinking that someone is trying to rob me. Okay.
Well, no, they didn't knock on the door. They was already in the apartment.
Well, they're saying that they knocked on the door. Okay. But
Did you see a knock? I saw them open the. I saw them
yeah.
with a key.
So
Yeah,
actually, yeah,
yeah,
it was a key. And so
yeah.
from the time that they entered the door, there were 9 seconds in between the time that he had a gun. But the problem is, it's not illegal for him to have a gun in his own house. That's not illegal. So the fact that he had a gun is really irrelevant. And so when we see stuff like this, and just looking at that video today, I mean, it's pretty obvious. And if you don't see it, I'm calling you out. You are willfully ignorant.
Mm. All right, Aunt. All right, Aunt. I mean, you
Yeah.
come with the fire.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts, young ladies?
Yeah, I think I would definitely have to agree with what Uncle Anthony said with that. I think with the social media age now with videos, before there may have been a time where, oh, like stuff like that doesn't really happen. But I think now it's beyond the point of ignoring it. And we can really see that there's a definite issue with the death of George Floyd, for instance. We can see that there were repetitive times where police officers have allowed their biases to impact the way that they work. Just like Dad said just now, when they go to work, they can't, take off like who they are in that instance. And I'm not really sure what the solution to that problem would be if it's so widespread.
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. Like, I don't really think it's a question of if the criminal justice system is racist. Like at this point, I think we've like well established that. I think we have pretty much all the proof we need. But like, it is a question of like how to fix it or how to solve it, and that's a little harder than just proving that the criminal justice system is racist because it is. But it begs the question of how you um, I mean, like, how do you fix something that's so deeply ingrained in one of like the society and culture? So,
Well, well, let me ask this question. Because obviously, look, me and my brother, we're 40. I'm 49. I'll be 50 this year and be 49. So we're in a total different generation than you two girls here. What conversations are you having with your peer groups? Because obviously, the conversations I had have with my peer group
Hmm.
is a little different. Because you guys are a lot more savvy. You are the TikTok generation, all that other stuff. So, so what conversations are you having with your white counterparts about issues like this?
Camille, you want to take that one first?
I mean, I feel like I'm in my own peer group, and that's the thing. Like, you specified like specifically white counterparts, and to be completely
Okay,
honest, it's I can't say that I have many like white counterparts. Um,
okay,
and among that small group of people, I think it's still pretty well established that like I mean, I'm not out here like trying to convince them that the criminal justice system or that the police are racist. They have very
yes,
well like good comprehension of that already, which I think is like really nice to have that kind of like starting ground or foundation. Um, but I think that if anything, they're definitely more information, but like more sympathetic and open to learning and like hearing and being a part of discussions regarding race.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same kind of key as Camille. I honestly don't have very many white counterparts either, but I think for me, a lot of the community that I'm a part of are Christians. And I think a lot of the conversations that we were having was how to see this from like kind of that point of view. And something that we were really just debating is yes, we understand that this is a heart issue. Like there's something deeper. Like hatred isn't just something that, oh, you just think of one day. It's something that's taught, something that's ingrained. And even though it's a heart issue, we also understand and had discussions about what should the ramifications of those decisions that one makes because of that heart issue be. We can't just stop and be like, oh, like this is a terrible thing, let's pray for them. And while we should do those things, we also recognize that there are certain steps that need to be taken and consequences that need to be had because of decisions that people have made from that particular heart posture of hatred towards other humans, other people. So I think that's kind of how my conversations were centered on how do we see this from a biblical lens, but also understand the need for justice for when crimes like this occur.
Excellent, excellent answer. Excellent answer.
Um,
So, oh, go ahead, Ant. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'll let you go ahead.
Yeah. Listen. Have you? I know you guys are. I know you're a freshman, Camille, and Morgan's a senior. Um, have you guys had any experience with being active or being part of any type of protest or being active in any type of cause that you believe in?
You can
Yeah.
take it away.
Yeah. So I'm a part of like my campus's Black Student Union, and a really cool thing actually happened. Like 5 years ago. It was called the Amherst Uprising, basically, in which pretty much the majority of Black students, kind of blocked in classes and made a list of demands. And I think it's really cool that that's something that not only like the college hasn't just like erased from its history, but every year it kind of honors that. Um, and there are similar protests. And like memorials that are held every year, like in remembrance of that. So I haven't actively been a part of any protest on campus, um, and in part I think because Amherst makes such like a good effort to be proactive about topics regarding race and such. But there's definitely like an awareness and a knowledge and an understanding amongst Black students on campus that I'm like happy to be a part of, in the form of whether that's Black Students Union or like Biracial Students Union, um, and there are a plethora of other affinity groups such as that. So yeah.
Good.
Yeah, that's awesome. So my freshman year was actually a time of pretty bad just racial unrest at the University of North Carolina. We had a statue called Silent Sam that stood on our campus. Um, and I was able to go to some of the protests and some of the marches that
Morgan,
we had.
Morgan, Morgan. For those who don't know, I mean, cut you off, but for those who don't know, explain who Silent Sam and what Silent Sam represent for the people in the audience who may not know who that is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So Silent Sam was basically a memorial for Confederate soldiers, and it just had a really bad history. And I say bad, that's kind of minimizing the just how uncomfortable it made students, especially Black students, feel here walking on campus where we're supposed to be supported, where we're passing a statue every day on the way to class that just represents the Confederacy in a time where the slavery was upheld. And so I was able to go out to some of those marches and just really take a stand and help to show the university that this is not something that is okay and it deserves to be taken down. But also along with that, I think it was really interesting that while I was also in those marches, I was also able to talk to many of the police officers that were guarding the statue at the time. And so I had a really interesting kind of dual moment where I was a participant, but I was also willing to listen in a way. And so, yeah, I think that was a pretty good experience.
Awesome. Awesome.
Well, I mean, that's good to hear. But you're right. You were your early years at UNC, definitely definitely a lot going on. And I think one of the things that's interesting is the whole debate about how history is being taught now.
Mm.
And on one hand, you have the folks saying that we don't want you to take down monuments because um, you know it's history. You want to preserve history, and we want to make sure that we don't repeat history. But on the other hand, you have the same folks who are decrying that. They're saying that we don't want you to teach accurate history in terms of what has happened during the civil rights movement, during Reconstruction, even during the founding of this nation. So I don't know. I think it's very interesting how those folks decide what they determine is history. We get to decide what's history too.
Yeah. I think what's happened, and Lord, I'm surprised Morgan didn't start laughing because if you grew up in my house, you already know as far as history and especially African American Black history and things of that nature. Um, but yeah, I think what's happening, and I think with George Floyd, right?
Yeah,
History was never an issue, but what's happened is that now there is a critical analysis of history, right?
yeah,
And when you start talking about that critical analysis of history, then you start looking at things through a more informed lens.
correct.
And then it becomes the issue of restorative justice, right? When you see situations where the government was complicit in taking millions of acres of land from African Americans, or the situation in California where California gave land back to an African Americans who was stolen from the government,
Hmm.
who the government stole from years ago. And when you look at it through that lens, restorative justice, and you look at what happened in Wilmington and Tulsa, those are descendants who I think still owe that land.
Yeah,
You see what I'm saying? And now also you're talking about, hold on, I froze for a second. Hold up. Also, you're talking about like issues with diversity and inclusion, right?
Mhm.
And now you have before um, where spaces where African Americans didn't have an equal part in. Now they give them the chance to get in there,
yeah,
and now all of a sudden there's this pressure. It's like, oh, there's competition now. And I think I always say, um, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You're used to getting 100% of the slots. You get 100% of the slots, and now all of a sudden you get 90%. Oh, you're about to lose your mind, right?
yeah,
I think right now Chapel Hill is in a case in Supreme Court about affirmative action. Um, when I walk on Caroline's campus, or even probably Amherst, I've never been there before, I'm sure there's no doubt about who the majority of the students there, right? There's no doubt. So I don't know. I think that at, when is okay, is 10% for all minorities, including Black women, Afro Americans, Indian Americans, Hispanic Americans, white women. That 10%,
yeah.
is that too much? So at what point? So yeah,
Well, I mean, I think the first thing is we really need to talk about affirmative action, and we need to
yeah,
really bring the statistics. Um,
yeah,
and so I think the thing with affirmative action is you don't know. Do you really know who quote unquote an affirmative action hire is, or if
yeah.
someone gets into college? I mean, it's really what's the word I'm looking for? It's really just speculation, really.
Yeah.
You know?
Here's the things, and I think we mentioned it last week.
Yeah.
I think the most unfortunate thing about affirmative action is people's ignorance of it,
Correct.
right? First of all, there's an assumption that if they consider race, they lowered the standards,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
They lowered the standards, right? Which is totally
Yeah.
not the case, right? Um, so if you and look at it this way, if you look at a school like Chapel Hill or NC State or any school in the South, right?
Yeah.
If the federal government had not stepped in and said, "Hey, consider these other races," at what point do you think those schools would have started admitting African Americans,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But to the point about qualifications, I want this to be clearly understood because I don't want people out there espousing it like they're lowering the standards to let these students in.
Correct.
Um, last I checked Morgan's report card. Grades were pretty high. I suspect Camille's grades were pretty high, right?
Yeah.
Um, School of Math and Science. You know what I'm saying?
Well,
So,
you just you just you just you just you just you just
uh
triggered a
oh,
memory, and
uh oh.
Camille, I'm gonna have to tell the story. I'm gonna have to tell the story, but the problem is that it's a no win situation because
Yeah.
if you are, like I say, you don't know who an affirmative action hire is, but if you are well qualified, right? Then you lose because they say, "Oh, you got there because of affirmative action," or if you don't, I mean, so it's like a no win situation. But I just remember,
But let me cut you off.
go ahead,
And 9 times out of 10, you're more qualified than your counterparts when you get
yeah,
in there.
yeah. Just want to tell a quick story, and I would definitely say that Camille handled this better than I would, but um,
Yeah,
Uh oh.
yeah.
Uh oh.
Camille used to go to the Wayne School of Engineering here in Wayne County.
Hmm.
And Camille's junior year, she was ranked number one, the number one student in her class,
Number
and
one.
number one student in
Okay.
her class.
Want to make sure I'm hearing that right. All
Okay,
right.
the number two person was at the time one of her friends. He was white kid. His name was Bryce. He was number two. And then their senior year it flipped. So now Bryce is the number one student, and Camille is the number two student. Okay, Bryce and Camille and a few other students applied to attend the North Carolina School of Science and Math in Durham. Okay, it wasn't a surprise to me that Bryce and Camille got accepted to the North Carolina School of Science and Math. But
No surprise.
it wasn't a surprise. But one of the parents of a student who didn't make it kind of made an offhand comment that the only reason why Camille was accepted to the School of Science and Math was because she checked all the boxes.
What's that thing you press? Oh hell no!
Oh, hell no!
What? Camille. Wow. Uh, Camille, how'd you handle that, young lady?
Um, I, I, I mean, I still think about that. So obviously, it's stuck with me. I wish I could say that I like went up to the kid or her mom and like told her off, but I really didn't.
Yeah.
But it is still something that sticks with me. But I do feel definitely validated knowing that I go to the best liberal arts college in the United States of America, and those other people do not. um,
Damn.
so there we are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. 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 Yeah. That's your child right there, man.
yeah. I mean, but it just goes to it just
Yeah.
goes to show you
Yeah.
that it doesn't matter how exceptional a student you are. There's always in the background there's a by certain people that
Hmm.
that they didn't earn it. And her making that comment, she didn't make the comment to about Bryce, the one who got in. You know what I mean? Even though like I say, the 2 years they flipped, she made the comment towards Camille. Like the only reason why she got in is because she checked a box. And so yeah, those are the little microaggressions that we talk about that people act like that it doesn't exist. Well, they do exist.
Well, man, and look, look. Let's if we're going to talk about checking boxes, let's look at how it works. Now, when you apply for any college or university like Carolina, race is just one factor, right? First thing, like for instance, you know what other box they checked? You know that Camille and Morgan, they live in a rural district, right?
Mm-hmm.
Students from rural districts are underrepresented in these universities.
Mm-hmm.
There's a box that you check for you being from a rural area,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Um, Camille, your daddy is a armed forces veteran, right?
Yep.
So I'm sure there's a box that armed forces veterans check. That's a consideration,
Mm-hmm.
right? Has nothing to do with your grades. It's just a consideration, right? If you are the son or daughter of a police officer, something like that. Or if you have a parent that was killed in the line of duty or killed in armed services, you go to school for free.
Yeah.
That's a consideration, right? Um, if you are a football player who got three on the SAT and got all D's, but you run a 4.34, you could probably get in Chapel Hill and Duke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just saying, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that this racism misnomer has nothing to do with qualifications.
Correct.
Most of the students that are going to get into um, Amherst or going to get in Chapel Hill, they're already in the top 10% of their class already, right?
Correct.
Regardless, they're already valedictorians. So qualifications are not an issue. Those other things are just considerations that factor in.
Correct.
Also, most importantly, they're going to ask you, hey, did your mom and dad go to Amherst?
Yep.
Right? Has nothing to do with your grades. Did your mom and dad go to Chapel Hill? Has nothing to do with your grades. That is a consideration. Oh, most important, Int, did you donate $20 million to Amherst?
Did I?
Yeah.
No.
If you did donate $20 million, uh, Camille could be illiterate and she'll get in,
Mm-hmm.
right? So my thing is, if you're going to target just this one aspect,
Yeah.
then target all of them. But the issue is the problem of affirmative action is this here, is that all those years when those qualified, brilliant African Americans were not getting to Chapel Hill, it wasn't because they weren't qualified. They were probably more qualified than some of the people that were already going there. It was because these schools had a history of not admitting people because of their race.
Yeah.
And the question now is if the Supreme Court, which is poised to strike this down, if they're going to go back to that,
Yeah.
which is fine because HBCUs are sit here. We here for you, baby.
Yeah.
So if y'all if y'all want to take affirmative action away, and you got qualified, brilliant African Americans that
Yeah.
you don't want to admit to your schools, come home to Papa. Come home to
Yeah.
Papa. We'll take you.
Well, we probably had to have a conversation about how race was created and why it was created.
Oh, oh wow.
If we want to, you see, and I'm trying to think. Normally you should be able to talk about what you bring up, but I'm trying to think because there's a lot of numbers that's going in my head.
Yeah.
Virginia.
There you go.
What was it called? Bacon's Rebellion. Bacon's Rebellion.
Bacon's Rebellion. I know you know. Yes, Bacon's Rebellion.
Bacon's Rebellion. Yeah. Now Camille and Morgan, did they teach you all about Bacon's Rebellion and the significance of Bacon's Rebellion in high school, college? It's okay if you don't know.
It sounds vaguely familiar, so maybe in high school, but I don't have enough details about it to, remember it very well.
Yeah. Okay.
So basically, here's the deal. If I'm a very brief history lesson, very
Yeah.
brief, because race is a social construct.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
What a lot of people don't realize is that in 1619, when the first enslaved Africans came over here, not all of them were enslaved.
They were
right? A lot of them were
indentured servants.
They were very good, very good. That's right. They were indentured servants. that means that you work for a period and then you become free of your debt. And so you had a lot of white people who came in as indentured servants,
Correct.
right? And
Well,
of
hold on,
course,
hold on. First of all, we have to talk. White people didn't exist then.
oh,
Back
that's
then,
right,
it
that's right.
was Scotsmen and Irishmen
Yes, in German,
in
right?
German.
In German,
Okay,
yeah,
so
that's right. That's right. That's right. There was no distinction of race, right?
correct.
But what happened is the working class or the poor class they outnumber the wealthy, right? And so what happens is these groups formed alliances.
Yep.
Uh, the Africans, the Scots, whatever, because there was no race,
Yeah.
right? And so what happens is to create these class divisions, they started saying, hey, it's actually these here are trying to take your jobs and hold you down. They start those little race divisions. That's a very oversimplified version. I don't want to get too deep into the history,
Well,
but
I
if
think we should. I mean,
yeah,
because it, you can fact check me, but from my recollection, um, in they burnt down Jamestown, Virginia. They wanted,
yeah,
and as a matter of fact, Virginia was a colony at that. Wasn't it? I think Virginia was it a colony at that point? Because I think anyway,
it started off as Jamestown, then became a colony. Yeah,
correct. So, Bacon, I think Nathaniel Bacon, that's his name. Nathaniel
yeah,
Bacon. Um, After they completed, now we're talking about the folks from Europe. We're talking about Nathaniel Bacon, and we're talking about the African American men. Once they completed their term of servitude, they were able to go and plot out stuff for themselves. But during that time period, we knew who had all the prime land for growing crops. That was the wealthy class. So it's
yeah,
always been a wealthy class and a poor class. But the issue is that the reason it was an issue is because most of the time when the indentured servants, when their service was over, they tried to go find land, but there was an issue. There was an issue. The issue was that the Indians were already in that land,
yeah,
and right, the Indians were
yeah. That's right.
already in the land, and so what Bacon and all the other folks they wanted help um, from the militia or whoever it is to help them move the Indians out of the way so that they can have some land. Okay. Now go ahead. I'll let you finish. I just want the feeling
Oh yeah, I
that
mean, yeah, that's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot of deep history, man. But
well
yeah,
some stuff you don't
but
forget.
yeah, but basically, when they say history repeats itself,
Yes.
because what they did basically is that they start passing these laws and things of that nature, and what they did, they start distinguishing things by race,
Yeah.
and what it was really to ignite class divisions.
Correct.
And so all of a sudden now it became it was no longer Scots, Germans, and everybody working together and Africans working together
Correct.
against the elite class. It was now, oh, we're white and they're black and
Correct.
things of that nature. And so, and if you unfortunately if you look at uh, that dynamic is always being played out over history time after time, where politicians or whatever play on those insecurities and those
Correct.
irrational fears, and they do that dog whistle,
Correct.
and we find ourselves in these situations.
Yeah. So the relevance of Bacon's rebellion it changed the course. I think it really changed the course of history. I mean when you look back at some of the pivotal points in our history, because prior to the middle of the 18th century, again, the white people did not exist. So
Yeah,
and so when we talk about race, we know it's a social construct. All right, I
yeah,
won't charge y'all for the history lesson.
that's all right.
Yeah,
That's all
that's
right.
I think y'all made really good points with that, with race being a social construct. I took a class here my freshman year and we learned there's more diversity within racial groups than there are between people of different races. And so I think that's an interesting point you made. And to that, I think a lot of people, well, maybe a lot, I think some people believe that in order to, fix this, that we have to go to a point where race doesn't exist, that we just have to erase it and kind of start again. But in my opinion, I think that would not be good because it really erases what has happened, like what has occurred, and the discrimination. Because even though, excuse me, even though race may be, the words may be erased, that doesn't take away the impacts that it has had on minority communities. And so what do you think about the term colorblind, and how some parents are choosing to raise their children to be colorblind versus yeah, any other ways?
What parents are you talking about?
I know yeah, so we read in like my class, we read how some, honestly, it's, I can't just say that it's just white parents. There are people of different races here in America that are choosing to raise people up to see, not see color, but to see people like as people. And while I do agree that there are some benefits to that, as in we're appreciating the accomplishments, and we're not saying, oh, they reach this certain level because of their race, and we're appreciating them because of the characteristics other than that. I think, like I said earlier, that it kind of erases um, the impacts that former decisions based on race have had.
What do you think, Camille?
I think I see where you're coming from, but at the same time, like with what you're talking about with like Bacon's Rebellion, that reminds me of like, because I just took a political science class. So if we're thinking about like Marx, then race is just a social construct to keep the masses from reaching class consciousness. Because you're talking about the larger discriminate, like the larger um, idea that segregates people in life is economic disparity rather than race. Um, but racism as a mechanism allows, you like to think that a poor white person has more in common with a rich white person than they do with a poor black person. Um, and so I I don't know if the solution to that is like color blindness, because obviously that erases the entire history of racial segregation and racial disparities. But at the same time, racism and race as a social construct is really like keeping us from reaching like this state of class consciousness where we can make greater like economic change. But that of course would come at a very large level, and that's a complete different society that we're thinking about in that case. So
Yeah.
Oh man, excellent, excellent point, excellent point. Um, yeah, um, yeah. Colorblind society. One thing about it, and that's a great ideal to strive for, right? And the thing is like, and I guess what you guys are one thing you're gonna learn, I think, when in those books in college, when you see the theories, is like the theory always promotes the ideal, right? Um, but the guy that had the knee on George Floyd's neck, he wasn't colorblind, right? Um, the cops that went and grabbed that boy from the fight. See what I'm saying? And so I think it goes back to what I think what Morgan said earlier about it being a heart issue. Um, at what point do these things that are born in people, that are taught to people, at how many generations is it going to take for it to die out?
Yeah.
Personally, I'm cautiously pessimistic. um, and the reason why I say that is because um, I think that this mindset, this racist or white supremacist mindset, it's baked in the foundational DNA of this country. You know, um, it's almost like as if this country has a default back towards whenever there seems to be some type of progress made by whatever group. There's like some type of default mechanism, whether it be the Supreme Court or what have you, that kicks us back 20 or 30 years, right? Um, you you benefit, you do well during Reconstruction. You have black senators and black governors in the South, but then you pass Plessy versus Ferguson,
Yeah.
right? You get to the point where that consciousness, where this country uh, elects a African American president, right? Then you default back with the whole Shelby Holder decision, right? And then you default back from a brilliant Harvard educated well-spoken man, then you default back to a foul-mouthed, ignorant racist as the president, right? Who speaks to the hordes of people who want to go, who speaks to people that has it in them to go to the state capitol and smear feces all over the walls. And, you know what I'm saying? So there's always that default back to those type of things when it feels like um, there's going to be some type of demographic shift, or it seems like minorities are making some kind of gain, whatever that is. It's taking our way of life. You know, let's make us. Well, never mind. I won't go too far, but you get what I'm saying.
No,
You
I
get
understand
what I'm
exactly
saying.
what you're saying.
Yeah,
I understand exactly what you're saying.
yeah.
One of the things that that I wanted to talk about was an article that came out. I think it was the Washington Examiner put out an article that the White House, the Biden administration, as part of the funding in the CARES Act, that they were passing out crack pipes. Yeah, passing out crack pipes to people who that they were giving them away free as and you know yeah it
So
and
uh,
so the right wing media ran with that story, even though it is false, it's a lie. The right wing media they ran with it, and so I always find it interesting when I see people repeating that, and it's just simply not the case. Um,
yeah,
Go ahead.
yeah. For those, I don't know if y'all familiar. I don't think y'all familiar with that, are you, Morgan and Camille?
What?
So basically, man, here's this thing. It's called it's called harms programs, right?
Yeah,
And basically it's
Is it
these
just like a harm?
programs that
Oh.
assist people who are addicted to drugs, right?
correct.
For instance, if someone who is overdosing on OD on opiates, I think the cops have these Narcans
Yes,
shots they give them,
and that's a part of the
or people
kit.
part of the kit, yeah,
Clean
part of the
needles.
kit.
Yeah,
Yeah, part of the kit, clean needles, things of that nature. But the thing that is um, that's frustrating about it is that um, these harms programs, billions of dollars have been put in these programs for that, and it's because of the opioid outbreak that is mostly affecting the majority of white people. Now listen, I'm gonna be clear about this, very clear. Um, I hear a lot of people say that, oh, I'm glad that the opioid is impacted them versus us and things of that nature. Um, I I I want the government to give as much money as possible, you know, to help these people. Because me and you know personally seen what impact drug has on a family and has on a family member, and the
yeah,
devastation that it causes people. So I want anybody to I don't wish that on anybody. Um, I just wish when our daddy was dealing with his crack addiction that the government was putting millions and millions of dollars into it,
correct.
right? And it is ironic. It is ironic that this program with the needles for the needles and the Narcan and for helping these men helping with these overdoses, that the opioid epidemic is impacting mostly mostly our white brothers and sisters, that they still try to find a way to attach it.
Correct. Correct.
Because most of the money's coming out here to places like Wayne County and Billville, man,
Yeah.
where it's wiping these kids out. I hate to see it.
Also West
West
Virginia,
Virginia, yeah.
Kentucky,
Kentucky,
all those places,
yeah,
needle exchange programs. So this is nothing new. It's nothing new under the sun.
yeah, yeah,
Those programs have been in place, but the problem is that when you use the word crack and crack pipes,
it has a
it
connotation.
sends a message.
Yeah,
It sends a message, and the people who use that type of language, they know exactly what they're doing because
yeah,
pipes aren't even in the kits that they're talking about.
yeah,
So yeah, it is frustrating. It is frustrating.
yeah, yeah. But here's what they know, and it's unfortunate. They know that their constituency or whoever reads these, uh, Breitbart, the Daily Caller, Fox, whatever these Western Journal,
Yeah,
all these crazy right wing, they know their people are not going to do this due diligence,
correct.
and also they have their people convinced that anything that questions the validity of what they say
Hmm.
is fake news,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, so that's what we're dealing with.
Yep.
But the thing is, we have to be as diligent, as diligent as they're trying to be willfully ignorant. We have to be as diligent to the counter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's going on in y'all neck of the woods, Morgan and Camille?
Camille?
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm taking an international relations class right now. So part of my reading and stuff and studying has just been observing Russia and Ukraine. Sorry to take like such a
Oh.
wide turn, but um, Russia, Ukraine, NATO, the question of Russia invading Ukraine and involving NATO allies, um, and then a lot of hysteria about World War III, et
Hmm.
cetera, et cetera.
Okay.
You,
But
you,
we've been focusing on.
uh, well,
Oh, sorry.
Camille, your uncle was an international studies major. So my concentration was Middle East and Africa. But if you need any pointers, you know, reach out to your uncle. I could, yeah. I've been known to assist.
Yeah.
Will
Yeah.
do. Yeah,
Okay.
it's only the first class, so I'm not too deep in yet, but
Okay.
I'll let you know.
Okay. Please do.
What about you,
Okay.
Morgan? What's some of the things that's been going on that has piqued your interest?
Yeah, I think recently, and I think it's something that's kind of been building for a while, is just this new cancel culture, which I'm sure a lot of people have heard about, um, in how social media has created a place where people can be canceled or kind of ostracized from their businesses by losing their jobs or their reputation by the things that they've done when a majority of people are like, this is not okay, by what you've said, or things that have been just brought into the light. And so recently, I'm sure you know about Joe Rogan, who had a video was posted where he was saying racial slurs multiple times, and how people are wanting Spotify to cancel him, to fire him, and people are actually canceling their Spotify subscriptions because of this, and how this has just been a really like widespread thing. So I really wanted to know what your opinions on this cancel culture is, and
Well,
the impacts it's having.
I think first we have to distinguish between, so on the one hand there's cancel culture, and then on the
Mm-hmm.
second hand there's accountability culture. And so
Thank you. Thank
I
you.
think we have to distinguish between those two.
Yeah.
I'm all for
And,
accountability.
yeah, yeah. You took the words right out of my mouth. I said, let's
Yeah.
not confuse counsel with accountability.
Yeah.
And what's happening now is that people have never been held accountable for this behavior, right? So people have been comfortable in, like, if you see a group of African Americans barbecuing in the park, they've been calling the police on them for years, right?
Correct.
Now it's not acceptable, right? Um, or the lady who blocked the man in trying to get his own apartment asking for ID,
Yeah.
right? It goes back to the mentality where African Americans had to show their freedom papers,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
you know, so on one hand, um, I think that if people have never been held accountable for their uh, racist thoughts or actions towards other people, and I think it's good now. There's a consequence attached to it,
Yes.
right? So, but yeah, so we have to distinguish: do they need to be held accountable? Yes. Um, Calling the people on somebody for no reason that could possibly cause somebody to get killed
Yeah.
because of the biases that goes on with cops. Man, that's something that you should be held accountable. Good question, Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think there's the examples that you provided are pretty clear. And but there's some other things that, people posting on like social media and things like that where their ideologies are racist and they have things that are harmful to people. But where would you say the line should be drawn between people being canceled for sharing their opinions, but also allowing for there to be a freedom of speech?
Well,
That's a good one. There, you can take that.
well, no. I mean, I guess you have to think about it. Freedom of speech isn't being prohibited. I mean,
Yeah,
so by virtue of them posting whatever they believe on social media or,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that is freedom of speech. The problem um, is consequences.
yeah,
What are the consequences? I mean, Joe Rogan. He's I've always known about Joe Rogan. I knew about Joe Rogan when he tried to describe an African American community as the planet of the apes. This is nothing.
yeah,
This is nothing new.
yeah,
You know. So for him, it's about money. Just what? Yeah. Joanne is absolutely right. Capitalism
yeah,
draws a line. You're right.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
right.
So, and I think what's happened with cancel culture is not more. And Jake bring that point up, Joanne,
Yeah.
is not about cancel culture. It's about now these companies that these people work for. Everybody's bombarding them
Mm-hmm.
and calling them and making it be
Mm-hmm.
known.
Yeah.
So yeah, and back to your point, what you asked Joanne, excuse me, asked Morgan, when you ask about freedom of speech, one thing I love teaching my students, we cover these Supreme Court cases in civics,
Mm-hmm.
and we're talking about freedom of speech. There are limits to speech,
Correct.
right? You have the freedom of speech, and I think what's a famous thing, but you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right?
Yep.
So you can't incite, right? I think like when with Mr. Trump when he incited those lunatics. I know they're trying to rewrite the history,
Yeah.
but when he incited those lunatics that stormed the Capitol and put feces on the wall,
Yeah.
right? He knew exactly what he was doing, right? Um, so you inciting a riot, things of that nature. So there are limits on your speech, you know. And the same thing about, like I said, you have the freedom of speech, but you also have the freedom of consequences to your speech.
Correct.
So if you sit here and you say a racial slur, or just like what happened to the coach with the Raiders,
Yeah.
if you say or do something like that, um, there are consequences with it. So if you want to exhibit your freedom of speech and you want to use racial slurs or things of that nature, that's your freedom. Do it.
Yeah.
I support your right to be as ignorant as you want.
Yeah.
I would have figured that right, but I will also be here with a big grin when you get those consequences.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm for both of it. Do you and get done.
Yeah.
Do you and get done.
Yeah. What about you, Camille? What do you think?
Say it again.
Um,
I was asking Camille for her opinion as well.
Uh,
oh, yeah. I mean, I think that you can say whatever you want. Nobody's stopping you. Nobody's holding a hand over your mouth from stopping you and stopping you from saying what you think.
Yeah.
But you can't get mad when other people respond with what they think. And if that comes in the form of, people are not listening to your podcast anymore, then maybe you should have thought a little harder about what you said or examine like your own ideology.
Yeah.
The idea of cancel culture is a little bit dumb. It's just people responding to your statement.
Yeah.
That's There's a cause and there's an effect. That's how most things work. So it's pretty logical to me. Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny. That's true. All right, man. What else is going on? Oh yeah, North Carolina voting. Some voting information. So the North Carolina Supreme Court has basically said that the maps for the congressional and general assembly, those maps have to be redrawn. And what's interesting is that when you look back at the hold on. We should also not validate this sense of victimhood. Oh yeah, that is true. That is true. You're not a victim. You know.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not a victim. You know exactly what you're doing, and the problem is that you were getting away with it because it was bringing in. I mean, and I just use Joe Rogan as an example. I mean, Joe Rogan has a following, and he's been spewing nonsense for the longest. I mean, but he has a following because he gives his audience that red meat, and they long for it, and so he's giving his audience exactly what they want.
Joey, right. That victimhood, man. Let me tell you, I be speeding, but when I get caught, man, I feel like a victim.
Yeah, yeah,
Man, why you pull me for?
yeah,
You speeding, man. I'm mad at the cop. I'm wrong as the day is long.
yeah,
So yeah.
yeah. Speaking of that, you heard about the Olympic, I think the 16-year-old from Russia that failed a test for a banned substance, and they still allow her. They're still allowing her to participate. Compared to I can't think of her name, Shakari Richardson, where she,
Yeah.
so there's a lot. I've been seeing a lot of comments about that on social media, and I'll just say this right here. Does one thing have to do with the other? I don't know.
IOC, same organization.
Yeah.
IOC, same organization.
Yeah. I'm just of the opinion is, I don't know. Is it fair? Don't smoke weed. I don't know if you know I don't know. And then it's not even an issue. It's not even an issue.
It's like this, and how can I say it? When I talk to Cameron and he talking about getting pulled by the police,
Yeah.
he knows that he can't have certain movements.
Correct.
He can't get out and cuss at the cop and run away from the cop and stuff like that. Whether he's justified or not,
Yeah.
right? Can his white friend do that? Yes.
Yeah.
So or not and not have the same consequences. So when you point out to me that the girl from Russia is being able to play and the Shakira Richardson could not play, and it's the same governing body, the international, the IOC. Why am I surprised? Does anybody know the history of the Avery Brundage, the history of the IOC that raising so holding these black athletes to a higher standard than everybody else? So it's not new, right? And as long as there's no diversity at the top, right? There's no diversity at the top. You're going to continue to see these things. So hey,
yeah. I mean, it's a tough conversation, and what I will say is, we have to make sure that we don't put ourselves in those situations where we have to be judged by someone else. That's the I think that's the issue. Shakari Richardson is an adult. It was a 16-year-old. I think she was a 16-year-old. So there's I would admit that I'm not sure what the substances were, but
was it banned?
It was banned. Yeah.
Are you supposed to compete when it's banned?
Well,
she tested positive for 3 banned medications that are supposed to help with heart conditions.
Oh, it was 3 of them. I thought it was just 1.
I believe it was 3.
Yeah.
But
at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that you can point it out. Yeah, we always point it out. but it doesn't change the fact that she put herself in a situation where she was where her actions were impacted her decision to run. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
hey, look, African Americans make up 13% of the population. Uh, make up 100% of getting killed by no knock warrants.
yeah,
You
yeah.
know.
That's a
So
tough one.
yeah.
Let's see. We got a few more minutes. What else is? Did I miss anything? Did anybody miss anything else uh,
I
that's going
I think
on?
you mentioned like the Supreme Court
Oh, that's where I was going with it. Yeah,
with voting. Yeah, I
yeah,
know the state guy from New Bern, Mike Morgan, is a judge on the Supreme Court.
yeah,
But North Carolina went back to its post Reconstruction days and went and racially gerrymandered these maps to try to dilute African Americans. They're not being pretentious about it, and it went to the state Supreme Court, and now they have to redraw them.
yeah.
Um, um,
And
so yeah,
basically,
so voters,
if those maps were in place, basically what that means is the Republican led state legislator would have had a veto proof margin. Even though when you look at the presidential election, and I know everybody doesn't always vote, but when you look at the presidential election, Trump won in a state that Trump won by 2 or 3 points. You wouldn't think that Republicans would have like a 8-3 or 8-1 advantage in these state legislators. So we'll see what happens. Especially when you look at the census and you look at where the population growth came from in the areas that they came from.
yeah. So it's a demographic shift. The population
Yeah,
is becoming younger, browner, and more intelligent.
yeah,
Uh, and so that doesn't bode well, unfortunately, for Republicans.
yeah.
Unfortunately, um, are y'all listen? I know are y'all registered to vote, young ladies? Ha,
My
ha,
absentee
ha.
ballot is in the mail en route to Massachusetts.
Awesome, 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 awesome.
Okay.
How do you guys vote? Why do you register as and how do you vote?
I haven't voted yet, but this would be my
Okay.
first election.
Oh,
But
it'll
I'm
be your
unaffiliated.
first. Okay, yeah, that's right. It is your
Oh, that's
first
right. That's
election.
right. 18.
Yeah.
How about you, Miss Smith? Older Miss Smith. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
wow. Yeah, I'm registered as a Democrat. But in the terms of how do I vote, I normally try to make sure I have the information on each of the candidates that are running. I just try to really be intentional about not just voting a straight ticket, but really looking at each individual and seeing if my values aligned at least closely with the ones that they are saying they believe, and looking at past histories, like if they've already been in office, you're saying one thing, but what have your previous votes, what do they say? Because sometimes actions speak louder than words. um, yeah, and so those are my main ways of trying to seeking, like, okay, who do I want to vote for, and why? I don't want it to just be I'm just doing this because I know how impactful even one vote can be.
Morgan, now you said something. We're not gonna assume that everybody knows what you're talking about. When you say that you try not to vote a straight ticket, what do you mean when you say that?
Yeah, so basically when I go to vote, I'm not gonna, well, I mean, if all of the people I like are Democratic, that's what I'm gonna do. But basically I'm saying that I don't just go in and vote all Democratic because that's what I identify with, but I make sure that whoever I'm voting for, even if they are Republican, or even if they are unaffiliated or independent or whatever, that um, I'm voting for them because of their stances and on certain topics, and not just because of their political affiliation.
Okay, okay, good man.
Um,
We, we,
all right. I think that's anybody got any? We can go to some closing thoughts. Camille, we'll let you go ahead. How's the weather in Massachusetts right now?
Right, we're having a warm week so far. It's 40 degrees right now.
40 degrees.
Oh,
Okay.
20s. So this is an improvement. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
Aunt told me you walked 3 miles in the snow for that $30 an hour.
I sure did. My bike crashed. I had 3 miles to go, and I plowed through it with my boots on. So
All right,
$30
Camille,
an
you got any?
hour, man.
Do
I
you
could
have any
use some of
closing
that.
thoughts before we end
closing
this
thought.
episode?
Uh, I mean, there seems to just be a similar thread that Black people will always be held to a higher standard than, or have higher standard than white people will. Do with that information what you will, I suppose. The question of how to fix that standard is a big one. Um, but yeah, Black excellence. I think Joanne made a comment of that, but I'm trying to see what she said. Yeah, I really like that. We must never provide evidence of our excellence to prove a point that to those intent on believing that we are lesser. Yeah,
Whoa. Whoa. Wow. Whoa. Read that again.
so she said, we must never to prove a point those intent on believing that we are lesser. So, I mean, know your inner worth. I think is what that means, um, and shine on regardless. So yeah.
Wow.
Morgan, closing
yeah,
thoughts.
I think piggybacking off of that, um, I think it can be really daunting to see all the problems that we have, in the world between race and economic imbalances and just things like that. And I think what Camille said was really impactful with, just do the best that you can with what you have and try to, while you're doing that, also try to lift up others and try to make the world a better place. That even if ultimately, it doesn't work out quite the way you want it to, knowing that the small wins are still a win. And that can be really motivation to move and press on forward.
Wow, very nice, very nicely said. Um, I first of all, I want to, I Camille Morgan. I mean, I know my brother said, "Well, we are some proud fathers." Well, I tell you,
Yeah.
there's no doubt about it. We are, I'm a proud father. You all are doing an excellent job carrying on the legacy. Keep pushing, push through your obstacles, and just remember where your foundation is. Um, for the other folks, um, particularly my fellow North Carolina residents, if you have not registered to vote, or if you do not know that you're registered to vote, please type in how can I find Google. How can I find if I'm registered to vote? And they're going to send you to the North Carolina Board of Education where you can check and see if you are registered. Please make it a point to do that. So when it comes time to vote in the primaries, you have everything in order. When we're done, matter of fact, I'm going to drop the link in the comments for so folks can go ahead and check and see if they're registered. I don't care who you vote for. Just make sure that you take part in the process.
Yeah. I echo what my brother said. Please register to vote. I also echo what he said that I'm very proud of our children. Um, I know you're proud of your two girls.
Yep.
Um, I'm very proud of my three children, Morgan, Maya, and Cameron. I'm sure Joanne is very proud of Jordan and Sammy. Sammy's a freshman at Carolina as well. So we're very, and I'm glad that you two ladies came up here um, and presented yourselves very well. Um, so good to go. And also one last thing, I would be remiss if I did not say that Joey Morgan this May will be uh, the next grandchild to receive her college degree. So Morgan will be graduating from UNC Chapel Hill this
Yep.
May.
Yep.
The Ned Smith grandchild to carry on that tradition. So I am very
Mm.
very proud, very proud.
Yep. All right. Well, if that's all we have, we'll see you two young ladies later. Good episode. And we will see you when we see you.
All right, peace.